So here we're looking out over Roebuck Bay, which is one of the most important shorebird sites in Western Australia and indeed probably in the world. Basically the southern terminus of the East Asian Australasian flyway for a lot of the birds that use that flyway. Late afternoon here, or mid-afternoon, tide's going out and it's slowly exposing large areas of the mudflats out here, as you can see. This is really why the shorebirds are here. The mud rich in a wide range of invertebrates which provide food for the shorebirds, which allows them, basically while they're down here, all they really want to do is feed, put on weight, make sure they've got built up enough reserves to be able to fly back to the Arctic where most of them breed. So they need an area like this which is very rich in food. Over our wet season we've probably got about, on average, about 125,000 shorebirds using this bay, and all they're really doing is feeding out on the mudflats. The tide at high tides will come and cover these mudflats, and so then there's no options for the birds but to come up and roost on the beaches. But aside from that, day or night, if the mudflats are exposed, you'll find the birds out there feeding, and really that's basically so that they've got enough reserves to make a flight to the Siberian Arctic, which for most species from here you're looking at about 10,500 to 11,000 kilometre journey. They'll stop a few times on the way there at other important stopping points in the bay, on the flyway, particularly around the Yellow Sea in sort of China, South Korea, that sort of area. But yeah, fantastic vista and a wonderful place to work. We're just down from the Broome Bird Observatory, which was established in the late 1980s as a base for research on the bay and the shorebirds here, and lovely place to work. Scientific consensus at this stage is that modern birds evolved from bird-footed or theropod dinosaurs, and here we've got a theropod track in sandstone on Roebuck Bay. This one probably Megalosauropus brumensis, which is what the theropod tracks at Ganthium Point in Broome have been identified as. So I guess in a way modern birds using the bay now, ancient birds 65 million years or more in the past still using this area as an important site. So here we are basically on the edge of a very extensive mangrove forest which fringes most of the eastern section of Roebuck Bay. They're slowly stretching along the beach from Little Crab Creek, just off to our east here. They've slowly been expanding in the last decade or so, but the main forest starts on the other side of Crab Creek out to our east here, and from there it runs for about at least 25 kilometres all the way around almost to the far opposite corner of the Roebuck Bay at Bush Point. Mangroves really are a unique ecosystem. Their locations they occur sort of in the intertidal zone present a wide range of challenges for both the mangrove plants themselves and the animals that inhabit these mangrove woodlands. As a result you get quite a lot of specialised species, a large number of birds restricted to mangroves only. and also you get specialised snakes, crabs, a whole unique ecosystem. So one of the main issues the mangroves face in this intertidal zone is that the ground is almost permanently waterlogged. They can't access oxygen from the water, there's too much water in the soil. So basically most mangroves get their oxygen from the air. This particular species does that by using these pneumatophores, which are basically roots that grow up out of the ground and then facilitate gas exchange with the air rather than in the ground. Other species have hanging roots that grow down from their lower branches and acquire oxygen in that manner. Another problem these mangroves are faced with is excess salt. Obviously an estuarine environment here, all the water is very salty. The way this species deals with that is to take up the salt water and then it just excretes the salt through pores in its leaves, which is why you can see a bit of a build-up of salt on these leaves as a result of that. Other ways they do that include by using sacrificial leaves. Basically a few leaves on each stem, the tree will pump full of salt and those leaves will then die and remove the salt that way. We're on the banks of Little Crab Creek here, which is a tributary of the main Crab Creek a little further to our east. They meet up a little bit to the west of us here. And this is a fairly typical small tidal mangrove creek for this sort of area. See mangroves lining the banks here. Most of these mangroves are grey mangrove, Avicennia marina. Further towards the mouth particularly you get a few other different species as well. And like a lot of the smaller tidal creeks here, when the tide goes out and it's low tide, almost all the water's left the creek. You can see now we're on an outgoing tide, water's still flowing quite rapidly down and out of the creek. This creek's entirely tidal, so it's not the water's not flowing down from any water source inland. It just fills up with the tide and then empties again on the outgoing tide. Being such a unique environment, a number of the animal species in here are restricted or largely restricted to the mangrove woodlands. Around here these include species such as the mangrove golden whistler, white-breasted whistler and the dusky gerygony, which is also limited to the mangrove forests of coastal northwestern Australia, so it's endemic to the state of Western Australia, which makes it quite attractive for some of our visiting birders. You also get reptile species like the white-bellied mangrove snake, which is one of the few snakes known to dismember its prey before eating. Feeds primarily on crabs and takes the legs and claws off while feeding on them. Quite a high tide today, so we can see up here how high the tide's actually reached earlier today on the high tide. Tide line up here, and on the really high spring tides it'll even get quite a lot further up the beach than that. Out here on the mud you can see a large number of our mud skippers. These guys are specialised fish that live on the surface of the mud at low tide. They're out feeding like you can see now. Like most fish though, they still need to keep water over their gills in order to breathe. So you'll see often they go to these little pools and get a mouthful of water to keep pumping it over their gills. Got 3 species here in the bay. The largest of those is the blue spotted mudskipper, which is what most of the individuals you can see out here are. There's a couple of bearded mudskipper I can see further out as well. The 3rd species we have is the mangrove mudskipper, and that tends to occur more in the mangrove forests rather than out on the exposed mud. These guys are quite territorial. If you watch them long enough, you'll often see a couple of them confronting each other at the boundaries of their territories. Most of these disputes are settled by display and bluff charging. A couple over there having a bit of a go now. They feed primarily on the algal film on top of the mud, small plant life. You can see them, if you look closer you might be able to see them grazing slowly as they move about there. With all these mud skippers here, it's just sitting out on the mud feeding. You'd think it was a tasty banquet for many of the predatory birds of the bay, and indeed a few of the species like Brahminy kite and striated heron do take the mud skippers quite regularly, but it's not as easy to catch them as you might think just watching this scene. Each of these individuals will have a burrow very close by, and if they're disturbed they bolt very quickly down their burrows.